The grim story of Robert Spahalski first came to light in November 2005, when the gaunt, gangly 50-year-old walked into a police station in Rochester, New York, and presumably stunned the officers on duty by confessing that he'd just killed a next-door neighbor named Vivian Irizarry. By Spahalski's own admission, Vivian was every good friend. So why had he suddenly snapped and lashed out with such catastrophic violence? If his story was to be believed, it was a moment of hallucinatory psychosis brought on by drugs. As he told detectives, they were both settling into a session of heavy drug use, and she was in the process of slicing open a bag of drugs with a knife when he suddenly saw her as a demon and freaked out. Moments later, Spahalski was hitting her over the head and strangling her. When police found her body, Vivian was naked but for one sock. The explanation, according to Spahalski, was that she had soiled herself during the attack, and he wanted to do her the service of washing her clothes. It was a startling revelation, but only the tip of the iceberg, with Spahalski also admitting a series of other murders which had taken place many years before. Among the other crimes Robert Spahalski confessed to during his fateful appearance at the Rochester police station was the murder of a man named Charles Grand, way back in 1991. Spahalski said that Charles was one of his sex work clients who refused to pay him after a session. For that, Spahalski smashed him in the head with a hammer. He then drove off in the victim's car and claimed to be Charles when he was pulled over by police in a routine traffic stop. Following the discovery of Charles's body, Spahalski was charged with criminal impersonation. However, they were unable to finger him for the murder itself, and he was even eventually acquitted of the impersonation charge. But Charles wasn't Spahalski's first murder. Earlier in 1991, he'd strangled his own girlfriend, Adrienne Berger, in an impulsive moment of extreme violence. In 1990, he'd also strangled a neighbor named Maureen Armstrong. This spate of murders went unsolved, bringing much anguish to the bereaved families, until Spahalski decided to settle all his past business in November 2005. Although Spahalski seemed determined to bare his soul to police officers in 2005, things became more complicated when his lawyer attempted to have all 4 murder charges thrown out based on a legal technicality. Later, during his 2006 trial, his team tried to mitigate the crimes by emphasizing Spahalski's extreme emotional disturbance and the fact that he was perpetually addled on drugs. At one point, his lawyer even placed 2 bags of drugs on the rail of the jury box saying, "The demon's here," and it affected his mind. Despite the best efforts of the defense, Spahalski was convicted and sentenced to 100 years in prison. Though he is often referred to as a serial killer, Spahalski is an anomaly due to the immense length of time between the first cluster of killings and his final homicide, and the fact that he seems to have committed the acts impulsively rather than to satisfy some inner compulsion. But while his motivations remain something of an enigma, there is one thing that is clear. In the words of his brother Stephen, Robert Spahalski will never see home again. He's gone.